Billionaire Cowboy. Weston Hale had seen enough storms in the Montana mountains to know which ones meant trouble, and the one roaring across the ridge that night was the kind that swallowed people whole. Snow came sideways, the wind howled like a starving wolf, and the world turned white, except for the faint beam of his horse's lantern cutting through the chaos. He'd only come out to check the cattle fences, but fate had other plans. A faint cry cracked through the wind, a sound so desperate and thin it barely reached him, but it tugged something ancient inside his chest. He turned his horse, urging it toward the sound, until the silhouette of a woman emerged, half collapsed in the snow, frozen fingers gripping a torn bag as if clinging to the last piece of her old life. Weston jumped from the saddle, scooping her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, her lips blue, her breath barely there. "Stay with me, darling," he muttered, wrapping his coat around her as he mounted the horse again. "Ain't losing anyone tonight. This ride back to his mountain cabin felt like riding against the end of the world, but he pushed through with the stubbornness that made him a billionaire ranch owner in the first place. When he kicked the cabin door open, heat and firelight washed over them. He laid her near the hearth, rubbing her hands, forcing warmth back into her frozen limbs. Slowly her eyes opened, brown, soft, trembling with confusion, and she whispered, "Where am I?" "Safe," Weston said, his voice rough yet tender. "You're in my cabin, sweetheart. Storm would have taken you if I hadn't found you." She blinked, tears catching the firelight. Her name was Ilara Shaw, a schoolteacher from the small town below, stranded when her car slid off the road during the storm. She'd been walking for hours through hellish winds, thinking she'd die out there, but now she was wrapped in a heavy blanket, fire crackling near her feet, and the rugged cowboy watching over her looked like salvation, carved from stone. Weston brewed her tea, cooked her soup, covered her in another blanket, refusing to leave her side. She noticed how his rough hands shook slightly. Something about rescuing her had shaken even a man as unbreakable as him. As the storm thickened outside, Weston lit another lantern, his face softening in ways he didn't let people see. "You scared me," he whispered. "Thought I'd lose you. Before I even knew your name." Ilara felt warmth she hadn't felt in years, not just from the fire, but from the way he looked at her, like she mattered more than the blizzard outside. Hours passed. Stories were shared. Pain from their pasts rose like ghosts. His heartbreak from a fiancée who left because ranch life wasn't luxurious enough. Her loneliness as a teacher who poured into children but had no one waiting at home. By midnight they felt strangely bound, not by time, but by the storm that had forced their souls into the same room. When thunder shook the cabin and the lantern flickered, she shivered again. Weston rose and gently wrapped his coat around her shoulders, leaning close enough for his breath to brush her ear. "You're safe with me. I promise you that." And for the first time in years, Ilara believed someone. As the storm raged outside, something warmer, deeper, wilder began to burn between them, something neither of them had expected the mountains to deliver. The storm didn't let up by morning, and neither did the strange magnetic pull between Ilara and Weston. When she woke in the massive wooden bed of his cabin, she found a tray of breakfast waiting, and Weston staring out the window like a man, wrestling with feelings he didn't know how to tame. She stepped toward him, the blanket wrapped around her shoulders, and he turned slowly, his blue eyes soft with something like awe. "Didn't think you'd sleep so peacefully," he said. "Didn't think I'd ever feel safe enough to," she whispered back. The moment lingered, long enough to feel like a promise. Weston finally confessed that he'd built this cabin not for wealth or image, but because the mountains were the only place that quieted the noise inside him. Ilara admitted she'd taken the teaching job to escape a broken family and a life full of disappointments. Somehow their wounds mirrored each other, and that quiet understanding pulled them closer than words. When she tried to stand, a sharp pain ran through her leg, frostbite and strain from the night before. Weston lifted her without hesitation, carrying her to the fire. "Darling, the storm might have tried to take you, but I'm not letting anything else hurt you again." His voice cracked on the last word, revealing more than he intended. Hours passed with gentle touches, long conversations, and a growing fire between them that neither denied. He taught her how to read the mountain winds, how to split kindling, how to wrap a rancher's shawl. She taught him how to breathe again, how to laugh, how to let someone in. By evening, the storm died, but they didn't rush to leave. In the glow of lantern light, Weston looked at her as though she had rewritten the very map of his heart. "Ilara, one night with you in this cabin changed everything," he confessed, his voice rough with emotion. "I've been alone in these mountains for too long. You showed up like a miracle." Tears warmed her eyes as she stepped closer, placing a hand on his chest. "Maybe we saved each other," she whispered. He kissed her then, slow, deep, protective. The kind of kiss that promised forever even, without saying the word. The whole town buzzed with rumors of the billionaire cowboy and the rescued teacher. But neither cared. Weston held her hand tightly, as if daring the world to challenge what they'd found. And just before the story ends, a gentle narrator voice fades in. If you want more Wild West love tales, more heroes, more storms, and more nights that change everything, don't forget to subscribe. Your support brings these stories to life.